So the garden was created at the beginning of the 1980s. The owner, a man called Jean-Philippe Toz, has started his own collection of plants, flowers and trees by the beginning of the 1960s actually, and was stocking all of his finds here in this area, which was actually his grandmother's place. And then eventually when he inherited of the house, decided to open it up for the people of the island. So giving the opportunity of people from Martinique to be able to see some of the vegetation that not only grows on the island but also on the outside, so they can sort of get to see some of the vegetation that we have here. So it opened then to the public in 1986. So we have sort of just over 3,000 different varieties of trees and flowers and plants here. These types of flowers are what we also call epiphyte. Now an epiphyte flower is a flower that's going to be needing a living host to be able to adapt itself. If I take this and I try and put it in a pot, it's going to die because it actually needs a living host to be able to develop itself and survive. So what they've then done is taken fern trees here and they've grafted them on the fern tree. Because what's going to happen is, because of the heat and humidity that we have naturally here, on the fern, moss is going to start developing itself. So there's now life. And so this is how the bromeliads can then develop themselves. And then a lot of them will also stock water because we have very harsh climates, as I keep saying. And then what you have just here are anthuriums. There's a mixture of anthuriums and sort of a local type of anthurium here that we call the cane flower, this one here. Now this would not be the Caribbean if we didn't have some sort of sexual connotation at some point. So this is it. So we call this flower here, the anthuriums, we call those the little boy flowers. And we call these the big boy This is going to be a type of epiphyte, very much like the bromeliads. It's going to need a living host to be able to develop and survive. So it can either develop itself on a wall on which there's moss, for example, or on another tree already. And then eventually, so it arrives here with these heavy winds that I mentioned earlier, or the migration routes of the birds who are going to eat something somewhere and then defecate on the islands. And eventually, so it develops itself at the top of the tree and starts to wrap itself around the tree. And it's the humidity that we have naturally here that gives the size of the roots. But that's why once the roots sort of arrive in the soil and on the ground, they don't need to really go in the ground because they're not there at the beginning. They just sort of develop themselves and sort of solidify, settle themselves on the ground and then just stick themselves to the ground really. And then once they're in, that's it, you can't move. You can even walk on their roots, it's not going to do anything. So we call it the dam fig tree, simply because it's quite an inviting tree. It gives you a lot of shadow and not shadow, but shade. That's the one. Thank you. So you know, you want to go and sit there and sort of laze around and maybe have a drink of rum. And so to stop people from doing that, they've been told that if you sort of have a snooze here, then your soul is taken away from your body.